Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be confronting a subject that is, it's historically challenging, but it's absolutely necessary for understanding the evolution of forensic science and criminal investigation in America.
It really is.
We are dedicating this deep dive to Joseph James DeAngelo Jr., a man whose criminal enterprise spanned 12 terrifying years across California.
And in that time, he earned, an unprecedented number of aliases. It was so confusing for law enforcement.
It really was. You have the Golden State Killer, the original Night Stalker, the East Area Rapist, and the Visalia Ransacker. All one person.
All the same man.
So our mission here is to take the extensive source material, which includes court documents, investigative reports, historical analysis, and just systematically unpack this story.
And we have to.
We need to document the methodical and, frankly, terrifying evolution of his crimes, from simple property damage in 1974 all the way to sexual violence and murder in '86.
And then we need to trace the investigation itself, that revolutionary investigation that finally led to his arrest in 2018.
Because when you look at the raw statistics, it's just staggering. 13 confirmed murders, over 51 documented rapes, and more than 120 burglaries.
And scattered all over California, northern, central, southern. That's why it was so hard to connect.
Exactly. We aren't just summarizing a case here. We're charting one of the most prolific and complex cold cases in American history. The scale is just overwhelming.
Which is why we have to approach it chronologically.
Right. It's the only way to make sense of the chaos and the adaptability that DeAngelo embodied.
That chronological structure isn't just for clarity. It's vital for understanding the criminal mindset here. DeAngelo's profile was never fixed.
He kept changing.
He did. His actions show a clear, calculated escalation in severity. He moves from breaking property to confronting victims, then to sexual assault, and then finally to lethal force.
And the geography changes with him.
It does. The crimes show a distinct geographical shift that directly coincided with changes in his professional life, which just complicated the task for investigators immensely.
They must have thought they were dealing with different people.
For a long time, they did. They weren't dealing with a single regional crime spree, but what looked like 3 or 4 totally disconnected patterns. The jurisdictional fragmentation was staggering.
How many counties are we talking about?
We're talking about multiple agencies across a minimum of 7 counties. Sacramento, Contra Costa, Stanislaus, San Joaquin, Alameda, Santa Clara, Yolo.
And all of them are dealing with a perpetrator who changes his modus operandi, his MO, and his location right when they're starting to close in.
Precisely. The linkage of all these disparate acts, separated by hundreds of miles and years, that was the Gordian knot of this entire investigation.
So let's try to unpack that paradox at the center of the story. Joseph James DeAngelo Jr. was a man who lived a public life as a civil servant, a police officer.
While simultaneously operating as a serial predator, it's the core of the horror.
He was born November 8, 1945, in Bath, New York. His father was a U.S. Army sergeant, and the family eventually settled in California.
And the early details that prosecutors reported, they offer a pretty grim foreshadowing of the violence to come.
What kind of details?
Well, sources indicate that during his teenage years in Rancho Cordova, DeAngelo was already engaged in property crime. Burglaries, mail theft.
But the truly alarming aspect, the psychological precursor, was the reported cruelty to animals. He allegedly tortured and killed them.
And that history of animal cruelty, which is so often cited as a common warning sign in the development of violent offenders, it gains a whole new context when you look at his later educational choices.
He was in the military first, right? The Navy.
Yes, he served in the U.S. Navy for 22 months during the Vietnam War. He was a damage controlman. Then when he returned, he just immersed himself in the world of law enforcement.
He graduated with honors from Sierra College with a degree in police science, and then got a bachelor's in criminal justice from Sacramento State.
And crucially, he completed a 32-week police internship in Roseville. So you see, he wasn't just working near law enforcement. He was intensively studying police procedures, forensic investigation, the very methods used to track criminals.
So in retrospect, his education wasn't just a career path.
It was advanced training in evasion.
And it was during this academic period that we encounter a relationship, one that's frequently cited as a catalyst for his later crimes.
Bondi Jean Colwell.
Right. He was engaged to her in 1970. She was a classmate. The relationship ended a year later. And the circumstances surrounding that breakup, they speak volumes about his emerging violent need for control.
Colwell ended it because he was becoming so manipulative and abusive. The breaking point was when he demanded she help him cheat on an abnormal psychology test.
And when she refused and ended things, his response wasn't sorrow, it was violence. He stalked her and then tried to force her to marry him by threatening her with a gun.
That failed engagement, the humiliation of rejection, that inability to maintain control, criminal profilers see that as a critical psychological fracture point.
And there's powerful evidence for that theory, isn't there?
There is. Investigators noted that during a rape attack in 1978, DeAngelo repeatedly uttered the phrase, "I hate you, Bonnie."
So the rapes weren't just about sexual gratification.
It suggests they were an acting out of the rage and humiliation tied to that early relationship failure.
So with that background, now steeped in law enforcement theory, he began his actual police career. He was a burglary unit officer in Exeter, California, starting in May 1973.
And he was there until August of '76. Then he transferred to the Auburn Police Department, serving there until July of 1979.
And his career just crashes down in July 1979, which is notably the year the East Area Rapist crimes essentially stop.
And what for? Not for rape or murder. He was arrested for the petty crime of shoplifting a hammer and a can of dog repellent.
He was fired that October, sentenced to 6 months probation.
And his reaction to being fired, it just confirms that intense concealed rage we were talking about. He allegedly threatened to kill the chief of police. He stalked the chief's house.
So that period, the summer and fall of '79, that's the transition zone.
It is. He loses his badge. He loses his access to police intelligence. And that corresponds almost precisely with the end of the ER crimes.
And the immediate geographical and methodological shift.
To the far more lethal original Night Stalker murders in Southern California. When you overlay the timeline, the connections are inescapable.
He was an active police officer in Exeter when the Visalia ransacker crimes began.
Right. He joins in May '73. The crimes start in '74. He transfers to Auburn in August '76. And the East Area Rapist crimes begin immediately in Sacramento County. He was using his deep familiarity with neighborhood layouts, patrol patterns, all of it.
While being sworn to uphold the law, the duality extended into his family life, too. He married Sharon Marie Huddle in 1973.
Right after the engagement to Bonnie Colwell ended.
They had 3 daughters, and he committed the vast majority of his offenses while he was married, while raising a family.
And they reportedly never suspected him. His eldest daughter described him publicly as a perfect father.
This ability to maintain an absolute outward facade of normalcy while engaging in serial violence, it's what makes the case so deeply disturbing.
For years, he worked as a truck mechanic at a Save Mart distribution center. A completely routine, unassuming job, right up until his retirement in 2017.
But even that outward calm, it seems it was fractured sometimes.
Oh, definitely. Sources detail multiple instances in his quiet Citrus Heights neighborhood where he had these loud, profane outbursts.
And there was a phone threat.
The most chilling example, a neighbor reported it. DeAngelo, enraged by their barking dog, left a message threatening to deliver a load of death. It was a localized, small-scale manifestation of the same violent temper he unleashed anonymously across the state.
It suggests the internal pressure was always there, barely contained.
Barely.
Let's move to that initial phase, the Visalia ransacker in the San Joaquin Valley. This is crucial because, as you mentioned, investigators now view this period, 1974 to 1975, as his training ground.
Exactly. It's where he perfected his surveillance and his entry techniques. At the time, these 120-plus incidents were treated as high-volume but very strange property crimes.
He didn't behave like a typical thief.
Not at all. He'd break into a house, rifle through possessions, vandalize them. He would sometimes scatter or stage women's underclothes in specific locations. That suggests a psychological, maybe even a sexual component was already in play.
And it's what he didn't steal that stands out.
Right. He routinely ignored large sources of cash, high-value electronics. Instead, he took low-value, sentimental items, coins, blue-chip stamps, a single earring, cufflinks.
And weapons.
And weapons, 6 guns, various ammunition types. The motive wasn't financial gain. It was about intrusion, control, and collecting these personalized, intimate tokens from his victims. Trophies.
And the methods he used for entry and evasion during these burglaries, they directly informed the later rapes.
Absolutely. He showed extreme caution. He used established routes like parks and ditches to approach homes. He would meticulously remove window screens, place them neatly on a bed, and attempt to pry open multiple entry points. Always had an escape vector.
And this is where he developed his most famous tactic, the warning items.
That's right. To ensure he wasn't trapped, He would place stacks of dishes or bottles against doors. If the family woke up and tried to enter the room he was in, the noise would alert him instantly, allowing him to flee. And the lack of fingerprints confirmed he wore gloves consistently from the very beginning.
This preparatory phase, it escalated quickly. The training ground became lethal on September 11th, 1975. The murder of Claude Snelling.
And what's incredible about this is that Snelling, a journalism professor, was already aware of a prowler. He had chased one off earlier that year. The sheer defiance of DeAngelo returning to that same house shows a growing boldness.
So what happened that night?
Around 2 a.m., Snelling went outside and confronted a ski-masked intruder who was trying to kidnap his 16-year-old daughter, Beth, in the carport. The assailant had subdued her with threats of a knife or a gun.
And when Snelling intervened,
He was shot twice. He died shortly after. The assailant then punched and kicked the daughter before fleeing, abandoning a stolen bicycle nearby. This was the moment the ransacker graduated from property crime to attempted kidnapping and murder.
and just a few months later, he had a direct confrontation with police.
He did. After the Snelling murder, the police increased resources, set up stakeouts. On December 12, 1975, Detective William McGowan was positioned in a garage near a frequent ransacker location.
Around 8:30 p.m., a masked man entered the backyard. McGowan attempted to make the arrest.
And the suspect's reaction was unusual. He shrieked, removed his mask, and seemed to comply, feigning surrender.
A diversionary tactic.
Clearly, as the detective moved, the suspect leaped over a fence, pulled out a revolver with his left hand, and fired near McGowan's face, shattering his flashlight.
A near miss for the detective.
A very near miss, but a successful escape for the suspect. The evidence left behind, the shattered flashlight, shoe tracks, and the dropped loot, which included blue-chip stamps and Osaka coins, it confirmed they had encountered the ransacker.
And the detail about his left hand.
Crucial. The sources note he fired with his left hand. This detail suggested the perpetrator was either left-handed or ambidextrous, a characteristic logged long before anyone knew who he was.
Which brings us to Phase 2, the East Area Rapist, 1976 to 1979.
The shift from Visalia to the Sacramento area in 1976 marks the true commencement of the serial sexual violence, at least 51 rapes. DeAngelo initiated this campaign after transferring to the Auburn Police Department, essentially using his new region as his hunting ground.
He focused on Carmichael, Citrus Heights, Rancho Cordova. The targets were initially women alone in single-story homes, but it's why he chose those locations that's so important.
They were always near open spaces, creeks, greenbelts, schools. It provided him with those quick escape routes he'd perfected in Visalia. His police training would have taught him exactly how patrol cars move, where surveillance gaps are.
And the preparation was staggering. This was not spontaneous violence.
Not at all. Police concluded he engaged in extensive reconnaissance, sometimes for months, looking in windows, prowling, using obscene phone calls to learn victims' routines.
He even entered homes before the attack, not to steal, but to prepare the environment.
Yes. Unlocking windows, sometimes planting a stolen gun, or disabling a firearm the resident owned.
And he was adapting constantly.
Always. When media reports suggested he only targeted women alone, he immediately pivoted to attacking couples. This shows a perpetrator who was listening intently to the investigation, modifying his MO to counter law enforcement strategies.
The standard attack structure, it involved breaking in, waking the occupants with a flashlight and a handgun. The process of control was so elaborate and cruel.
Often lasting for hours.
And the binding techniques reveal his extreme need for meticulous control.
Victims were bound tightly with ligatures, usually shoelaces he either brought or found. They were gagged, blindfolded with strips ripped from towels, and the female victim was often forced to assist in restraining the male companion.
It adds that layer of psychological degradation.
Precisely. And that brings us to the most defining and disturbing element of the EKR attacks, the dish trick.
After binding the man, he would stack dishes precariously on his back.
And then threaten to kill everyone if the dishes rattled. The goal was twofold: ensure the man remained frozen, paralyzed by fear, and to maximize the psychological torture for both victims.
While the man was immobile, the woman would be taken to another room.
Usually the living room, and subjected to repeated rapes, often over a prolonged period. During this time, he'd often ransack their home, eat food from their kitchen, drink their beer, acts that demonstrated his absolute dominion over their lives.
And the psychological connection to his failed engagement, it became explicit.
It did. During a 1978 attack, the 37th one, he uttered, "I hate you, Bonnie." This shows the violence was a form of transference, using the assault to reenact the rage and humiliation he felt when he was rejected years earlier.
The account of Chris Pedretti, who was 15 at the time, it really illustrates the cruelty. She was the 10th victim, December 18, 1976.
She was home alone, playing the piano. DeAngelo, wearing a ski mask, put a knife to her throat. His threat was chillingly specific. "Do what I say or I'll kill you and be gone in the dark."
A line that later became famous.
It did. And the cruelty was sustained. She was raped 3 times over 2 hours, left naked outside in the winter cold, then brought back in for more assaults. Her survival hinged entirely on compliance.
And she later described the trauma of the police questioning and the rape kit as the second and third victimizations of that night.
It's a powerful reminder that the trauma extends far beyond the moment the attacker leaves.
This phase then ended with a major escalation to a double homicide on February 10, 1978. Brian and Katie Maggiore in Rancho Cordova.
They were walking their dog near a known ear activity zone. The belief is they may have witnessed him casing a target. They fled, but he chased them down and shot them both to death.
And investigators quickly connected this to the ER.
Yes, through geographical clues and the discovery of a shoelace found nearby. DeAngelo later admitted guilt to these murders. By 1978, the East Area Rapist was already a killer.
Which brings us to the final phase, the original Night Stalker, 1979 to 1986. A stark shift in both geography and lethality.
After the last confirmed ear rape in July '79, he effectively goes dormant in Northern California and reappears in Southern California, Santa Barbara, Ventura, Orange counties.
This move south coincided almost exactly with him being fired from the Auburn Police Department,
Suggesting a deliberate attempt to escape a tightening dragnet. And the crimes were far more brutal. Where the ER phase focused on sexual assault and terror, the original Night Stalker, or ONS phase, was dominated by homicide, rape, and bludgeoning.
And that name, the ONS, that came later, right?
Right. He was initially just called the Night Stalker in Southern California, but the name was changed to the original Night Stalker to avoid confusion with Richard Ramirez in the mid-'80s.
The pattern of violence began almost immediately down south. The first ONS crime was an attempted attack on October 1st, 1979 in Goleta.
And this became the only couple to survive this phase. They were tied up, but the man heard the intruder say, "I'll kill him," to himself.
A terrifying moment of insight into the killer's internal dialogue.
It is. The woman screamed. A neighbor, who happened to be an FBI agent, was alerted and pursued the perpetrator as he fled on a bicycle.
But the violence escalated drastically 2 months later. On December 30th, 1979, Dr. Robert Offerman and Dr. Deborah Manning were found shot to death in Goleta.
Manning was raped, and the scene contained that chilling detail. The killer had paused to eat leftover Christmas turkey from the refrigerator before leaving. The scene suggested a struggle. Offerman's bindings were partially untied, leading investigators to believe he'd lunged at the attacker.
Then on March 13th, 1980, Lyman and Charlene Smith in Ventura. Bludgeoned to death with a log, Charlene was also raped.
And it was the binding technique in the Smith murders that provided the first definitive connection between the Northern California rapes and the Southern California murders.
The diamond.
A diamond, a highly specific, complicated knot previously documented in the Erie attacks. The specific detail was so unique it earned him a new, temporary alias, the Diamond Knot Killer. It confirmed the suspicion that this was all one person.
The senseless brutality continued August 19th, 1980 in Dana Point. Keith and Patrice Harrington.
He was a medical student, she was a pediatric nurse, both bludgeoned to death. Patrice was raped with extreme severity. Sources report her face and skull were pulverized.
This murder spurred a fierce commitment to justice from Keith's family.
It did. The lasting legacy of the Harrington murder is actually DNA reform. Keith's brother, Bruce Harrington, spent nearly $2 million supporting California Proposition 69, which authorized DNA collection from all California felons. That crime essentially forced the state to adopt the very technology that would eventually catch the killer.
Then in 1981, another attack in Irvine. Manuela Within.
Raped and bludgeoned in her home while her husband, David, was hospitalized. And the victimization for him did not end there.
No, he suffered immense secondary victimization. Police and neighbors wrongly suspected him of the murder.
He lived under a cloud of suspicion for decades, leading to severe alcoholism. The killer even stalked him, calling the house after the murder. David died in 2008, never knowing the truth, only to be exonerated by DNA years later. It's an incredible tragedy.
Later that year, July 27, 1981, Cherry Domingo and Gregory Sanchez in Goleta.
The attacker entered through a small bathroom window. Sanchez may have resisted immediately rather than submitting, resulting in a violent confrontation. Domingo was raped and bludgeoned.
And the final known crime attributed to the Golden State Killer occurred 5 years later, May 4th, 1986, in Irvine. The victim was 18-year-old Janelle Cruz.
She was raped and bludgeoned while her family was on vacation. Her body was brutally beaten, reportedly beyond recognition. A pipe wrench, missing from her stepfather's belongings, was a suspected murder weapon.
And after that attack, he seemingly vanished for 32 years.
DeAngelo's crime spree was unique not just for its longevity but for the explicit communications he made, both written and oral. These weren't just threats. They were profound psychological insights into his ego, his need for recognition, and his deep-seated anger.
Let's start with the written evidence. In December 1977, midway through the ear spree, a poem titled Excitement's Crave was sent to the Sacramento Bee, the mayor, and a TV station.
The content reflects intense grandiosity, a desire to elevate himself beyond the recognized social norm.
The theme is clear. His secret life is the true measure of his significance. He writes, "Leisure tempts excitement seeking. What's right and expected seems tame." This is the voice of a man who found his only true satisfaction outside the confines of his life.
And the poem ends with this almost delusional fantasy of status and financial gain. He asks that Sacramento make an offer to make a movie of my life that will pay for my planned exile.
And he heightens the fantasy by wanting to add the wife of a mafia lord to my file. It's incredible. He desperately wanted fame and recognition for his acts.
A year later, we got an even deeper look into the source of his anger. On December 9, 1978, 3 sheets of notebook paper were found near a crime scene, likely dropped accidentally. One was a raw essay titled "Mad is the Word."
This essay, it provided what prosecutors later argued was a foundational explanation for his rage. It details severe childhood humiliation from a 6th-grade teacher who punished him by forcing him to write repeated sentences.
He described sitting there for hours, writing 50 to 150 sentences until my bones ached, fueling this feeling of injustice. And the key line is that his angriness from 6th grade will scar my memory for life.
And the connection between this shame and his crimes is made terrifyingly explicit on the reverse side of an accompanying map, a hand-drawn map of a suburban neighborhood.
Strolled across the back of the map was the single word: punishment. It suggests his crimes were a form of self-determined vengeance, enacted on innocent people, stemming from that unresolved childhood trauma.
And the taunting was also verbal. The phone calls.
Frequently. On March 18, 1977, he made 3 unrecorded calls to the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office stating, "I'm the East Side Rapist and I have my next victim already stalked and you guys can't catch me."
And later that year, there was a recorded call that was released.
December 10th, 1977. It's a chilling example of his bravado. He taunted them. "You're never going to catch me, East Area Rapist, you dumb fuckers. I'm going to fuck again tonight. Be careful."
But then there's this rare, fleeting sign of internal conflict. Just days after those violent threats, on January 6, 1978, a man claiming to be him called a counseling service.
Right, stating, "I have a problem. I need help because I don't want to do this anymore."
But the call ended abruptly. He realized the risk, saying, "I believe you are tracing this call," and hung up. That brief moment of vulnerability was instantly suppressed by paranoia.
And his obsession didn't stop with the crimes. The calls continued long into his dormancy. In 1991, a call was made to a victim, and she could hear the sounds of a woman and children in the background.
So he's living this full domestic life, facade of a father, yet still indulging this compulsion to haunt his victims.
It's one of the most chilling details of the entire case.
And the final communication came in 2001, 15 years after the last murder.
On April 6, 2001, just one day after the Sacramento Bee published a critical article confirming the DNA link between the ONS and ear crimes, he called a previous victim.
And asked the ominous question, "Remember when we played?" It was a declaration that he was still watching, still paying attention, and still reveling in his perceived untouchability.
The decades-long investigation is a story of relentless dedication by law enforcement, which culminated in a technological revolution.
The initial difficulty was the sheer number of jurisdictions and the varying crimes, but the tide turned in 2001.
DNA testing confirmed that the East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker were the same person.
This is when crime writer Michelle McNamara coined the unifying name Golden State Killer.
Exactly. The FBI renewed the investigation with vigor in 2016, offering a $50,000 reward, but years of searching the official DNA database, CODIS, yielded nothing. His DNA just wasn't in the system.
This is where the true breakthrough occurred. forensic genetic genealogy.
In December 2017, investigators turned away from CODIS and toward the public genomics website GEDmatch.
How did that work?
They uploaded the killer's DNA profile from a rape kit preserved from 1980. The critical challenge was that the initial matches were only to very distant relatives, people sharing only trace amounts of DNA, great-great-great-grandparents.
So this wasn't an immediate match. This was a starting point for a massive project.
A massive project. Working with genealogist Barbara Ray Venter, investigators had to construct about 25 complex family trees. The one that led to DeAngelo contained an estimated 1,000 individuals.
And then they applied traditional investigative clues: age, sex, location to eliminate people.
Meticulously. They narrowed down the field until Joseph James DeAngelo, a retired mechanic in Citrus Heights, remained as the only plausible candidate.
Then came the confirmation, April 2018.
Undercover, they collected a DNA sample surreptitiously from his car door handle, a preliminary match. Then, to confirm beyond a shadow of a doubt, they collected a second sample days later from a tissue in his curbside garbage can.
Both provided an exact match.
Sealing the case after 34 years.
He was arrested on April 24, 2018. When he was charged, he couldn't be prosecuted for the rapes from the 70s because of the statute of limitations.
But he was charged with 13 counts of murder and 13 counts of kidnapping.
And after his arrest, a deeply unsettling moment occurred. He started talking about an inner personality he called Jerry.
Yes. Prosecutor Thien Ho later revealed DeAngelo's words. He said, "I didn't have the strength to push him out. He made me. I pushed Jerry out and had a happy life. I did all those things. I destroyed all their lives. So now I've got to pay the price."
A bizarre confession, an attempt to externalize his actions.
And ultimately, the case was resolved with a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. He pleaded guilty to all counts of murder and kidnapping, and as part of that agreement, he also formally admitted to the rapes and other crimes.
Giving the victims that definitive closure.
After days of powerful, emotional victim impact statements, he was sentenced on August 21, 2020. 13 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 8 years.
He offered a brief statement. "I've listened to all your statements, each one of them, and I'm truly sorry to everyone I've hurt."
And the resolution of this case had one final, profound impact. It cleared the names of innocent people who had unjustly lived under suspicion for decades.
Like David Witham.
Exactly. And DNA was also able to rule DeAngelo out of other lingering Visalia area murders. This impartial technological clarification provided justice not only for DeAngelo's victims, but for communities tormented by suspicion and grief for decades.
So when we look back at all the source material detailing Joseph James DeAngelo, we're left analyzing a criminal who is a true anomaly. A police officer trained in evasion who managed to be a serial predator across multiple methodologies, all while maintaining a seemingly normal domestic life.
The fact that he remained undetected for so long underscores the monumental task facing investigators. It took the unification of disparate cases by DNA in 2001, combined with the revolutionary application of genetic genealogy in 2018, to finally pierce the veil of his anonymity.
It's a profound study in criminal adaptation. The Visalia ransacker methods became the sophisticated terror of the East Area Rapist, which evolved into the extreme lethality of the original Night Stalker. His knowledge of police procedure was his greatest asset.
And this brings us to a final, reflective thought for you to explore. Considering the sheer longevity and expansive geographic spread of these crimes, coupled with the perpetrator's professional background in law enforcement and his obvious ability to analyze police procedure, what profound fundamental challenge does this specific case reveal about the inherent difficulties in building a truly comprehensive, multi-jurisdictional profile of a criminal mind whose only reliable constant was his chameleon-like ability to adapt and evade detection? Think about how many independent agencies had to collaborate across 4 decades to finally solve the pattern he created.